Hey, everybody, this is our midweek bonus material. Hope you're having a phenomenal week. Before I get into it, I want to let you know about something. LSU Tigers are playing the Auburn Tigers this coming Saturday in Tiger Stadium in the real Death Valley. And Zach Berry, our new worship pastor, is a huge Auburn fan, so he made a bet with me. And he put on the line, our bet is Fogo de Chao. So I'm like, all right, young fella, I don't want to take advantage of you or anything. So if you would, for me, just pray for the LSU Tigers to win. Not only for the Tigers, but so I can have a little Fogo de Chao on Zach Berry's dime. So we began a new series this week called Thrive, Living Fully in a Fallen World. I look at Philippians chapter 4, and the main message this week, and Paul encourages us, he commands us to be anxious for nothing. Do not worry about anything. We're to trust in the sovereignty of God, that God is in control, that he is orchestrating his perfect plan. We may not understand why things happen sometimes, but ultimately we're trusting that God knows what he's doing. He is in control. And so the main thought this week was to gaze at God and glance at our circumstances. And Paul teaches that one of the secrets of life is to be anxious for nothing. Well, originally in my teaching, I was going to finish out the passage and cover 4 more verses, but I didn't have time, and so I had to edit it out. And Paul goes on in this passage and shares with us another secret to life. And so I want to read that passage, then we're going to talk about this secret to life. Philippians chapter 4, verse 10 and following says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you have renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you have been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am needy. And here's what he says. Listen, he says, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Paul says that one of the secrets of life is learning to be content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry. I can relate to Paul. There's been times in my life when I've experienced both extremes. When Jennifer and I were newly married and the kids were really small and I was in graduate school, we were very poor. We lived off of $1,000 a month. Jennifer and the kids were on WIC. I mean, we literally went to the grocery store with food stamps. I was standing in line on Fridays at the food bank at the local church, and whatever food we were able to get from the food bank, that's what we ate that weekend. And so we know what it is to be in want, and God has, and now it's completely different. God has richly blessed us. But we need to be content no matter what our physical circumstances may be. And Paul says this is one of the secrets of life, to be content in any and every situation. In our quiet time this morning, our men's discipleship group we're all studying doing the same quiet time together. And in the quiet time this morning was Hebrews chapter 13. Verse 6 says, actually verse 5 and 6 say, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. That's verse 5, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. We're to be content with what we have. Now, why are we to be content with what we have? He says, because God's with us. God should be all that we need. But I think it's human nature to want what we don't have. This is kind of a long story, but our family recently rescued a cat. I'm not too happy about this. I'm not a cat person, but we now have a dog and a cat and all kind of animals. But the whole idea of how Jennifer and Jesse taught me into keeping this cat is that it would be an outside cat, and he would be a critter catcher, and he could kill snakes and chipmunks and all these things run around the outside of the house. But here's the deal. We have a dog that's an inside dog, that wants to be outside where the cat is, and we have an outside cat who wants to be inside where the dog is. And they're literally looking at each other through the door like, I want to be outside and he wants to be inside. And isn't that so true of life, that we want what we don't have? And we look at other people and we think, well, they have a better life than me, or they have a better house than me, or they have a better spouse than me, or they have better kids than me, or they have a better dog than me, or they have a better job than me. You know, it's like we compare ourselves to other people and we think the grass is greener on the other side. But the Apostle Paul says to be content with what you have is one of the secrets of life, to be grateful for what God has blessed us with. And the most important thing, obviously, is our salvation, our relationship with him. And so in this passage in Philippians chapter 4, Paul shares two of the major secrets of life: being anxious for nothing and being content in any and every situation. So how do we do that? How are we anxious for nothing? How are we content in any and every situation? Well, the answer lies in verse 13. Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, he says, I can do everything through him who gives me strength. The context of Philippians 4:13 is not winning sports events. I know we like to use that to win these sports events, but the context is being anxious for nothing and learning to be content in any and every situation. And we can be content through the power of God living in us and through us, that God gives us the strength to be satisfied in him, to be anxious for nothing, to not fear, but to trust in him. We can truly do all things through Christ who gives us strength. Well, I hope this material was encouraging and challenging to you. I'm really looking forward to this Sunday. We're talking about raising godly kids in an ungodly world. It is a huge topic, especially for those of us who are parents or those of us who are thinking about being parents. So I hope you can make it this Sunday to Graystone Church.